What is this? The blue backdrop is back. Yep. So, okay. Short version is we all know that the most consistent thing about my video formatting is that it's inconsistent. So I'm trying to go back to this. Whether or not I stick with it, who knows? But for now, I kind of wanted to go back to the backdrop because it gives me a little bit more freedom in everything, really. So for now, at least, this is what we're doing. And beyond that, what we are doing is taking a look at Rise of the Beasts Core Series Deluxe Class Airazor. And oh boy, do I have a rant about this. I'm going to try and keep it brief. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, the freaking nightmare that has been the mainline Rise of the Beasts line distribution, I had to import this freaking thing from Japan via eBay. I paid, after shipping, roughly double what this thing retails for, which, to be fair, in at least the instance of this figure, I don't feel like it was a waste of money. I absolutely would have preferred to pay like 20, 25 bucks for this rather than 50, but I don't think I got cheated. Like, I did get cheated because of the distribution, but I don't think that it was wasted money, considering the fact that, as far as I know, this thing is either never going to come to the States or won't be coming to the States for a very long time. Or if it does come to the States, maybe it's going to be part of a 3-pack. I don't know. Point is, distribution on this series has been a freaking nightmare in the US, and I hate it, and I'm really kind of annoyed about it, and it just pisses me off. It just pisses me off. But I don't want to rant about that for too long, so instead, we're just going to talk about Airazor here, and I'm going to be echoing a lot of what everyone has said about this figure, which is to say it is amazing, excellent, wonderful, well worth getting, and personally, I'd say it's even well worth importing. I know that doesn't really say much, but this is an incredibly cool figure. Not the least of which because of the way it transforms. It's kind of amazing. But yeah, from what I've seen, this is not super accurate to the way she looks in the movie. I'm totally fine with that. It still gets across the movie aesthetic because it is just covered in all kinds of mechanical details and some really interesting. I think I need to turn down the brightness on this light here. Down a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So yeah, it's covered in mechanical details and lots of greebling, if you want to call it that. And it's just, it really does evoke the live action movie aesthetic with all of the texturing all over this thing. Like they even got like all these little lines along the mechanical feathers and on the wings. And like stuff that I'm just noticing now, because I never really analyzed this figure too much, but I really like how they've got this kind of coppery color on top of the somewhat beige plastic. It's a nice look. It blends a little bit, but it's dark enough that it does stand out when the light hits it right. This figure, yes, could do with a bit more paint in places. I feel like the bird mode is fine for what it is. The robot mode, though, could use something. Like you can see here on the bird legs, there's no paint on them at all. I think like maybe a little bit on the talons would have been good, maybe some up here. But you know, for the most part, this is a good-looking bird. And again, the transformation on this thing is insane. I love this. I love how the way it's designed, you can actually flap the wings. Like that's pretty much all the wing posability you get is the flapping. You can move the tail feathers up and down, which, you know, works for posing. The head is locked in place, but you can unlock it if you want to. It breaks the sculpt, but it does give you the option to turn and look down, though that doesn't really look right. But if you angle it just a little bit and turn it, like from some angles it'll look okay. So that's an option. And then of course the bird legs, you've got ball joints at the back, so you can move those around. You've got swing joints in here, so you can swing them around if you really want to. You've got a thigh swivel, you've got knees, and you've got forward and backward ankle, or what counts as ankle movement. So it's a pretty cool bird mode, and it looks really good. I wish I still... Unfortunately, I don't have Kingdom Airazor anymore, because I basically got rid of her to make room for this. Even before I ordered this figure, I was just like, I'm going to get the mainline Rise of the Beast one, and I want that more than Airazor, so I'm willing to make space on the shelf for her. But yeah, I don't have the comparison to make, but I'm going to echo what TJ Omega said, in that this is a much more successful looking bird mode than the Kingdom / Studio Series Airazor. Not that those are bad. I still think Studio Series, or rather Kingdom Airazor, looks great, but this I think is a little bit more cohesive. It doesn't look like there's a robot balled up underneath a bird. It looks like a bird that it's, if you know what you're looking for, is made out of robot, but still. And the colors are nice. I like that there are a lot of different colors, primarily this like silvery beige, this coppery color, and this kind of mustardy color. It's like the three primary colors they use for this, but they all kind of work together. The tones are close enough that they work well. They're all kind of in the same general brownish family, and I feel like this mustardy color, it's a little bit brighter, so it kind of pulls it out of looking like, boring brown and gray movie colors. So yeah, I think the bird mode for Airazor is pretty solid. Now, let's adjust this, and my apologies if the camera gets a little shaky because of the new setup. It might wiggle a bit when I move it around and bump it. But let's bring in our size comparisons. So there we have Artfire. Oh, gotta angle this a little bit more. Trying to be careful so it doesn't wiggle around too much. And come here, come on. I'm still kind of feeling out how to do the setup for this, so the logistics are escaping me right now. There is Rotor Storm and Samus and Burnout. And, Airazor is pretty much deluxe size. Like the overall shape is very different, but I feel like mass-wise, these are pretty close. So yeah, there is how Airazor stacks up with some deluxes. Let's get these out of here again. And again, I wish I had Kingdom Airazor to do a bit more of a obvious size comparison with, but I don't. So, sorry. And let's round out these size comparisons by bringing in the one, the only, the requisite, the obvious Duck Tank. All right, transformation time, and that is where Rise of the Beasts Deluxe Airazor really shines. Again, this is probably no surprise to anyone because I feel like everyone's been talking about this figure, rightly so, but we're still going to do it. So first, there are these feathers on the underside here that are actually weapon storage, obviously. So those just untab. You can see the tabs and slots there. And we'll just put these off to the side. Now, going to, let's see. To start, I'm gonna pop the head out, rotate it 180 degrees, and then pop it back in, and the beak will sit right into that little groove there. Going to take the back legs and bring them down on that inner hinge so that they swing out like that. Then going to rotate the bird legs and straighten them out and fold the foot back and fold out the obvious robot mode fist. So put back obvious fist and rotate that. I want to leave these down for now though, because we're going to need the clearance. Now comes the really cool part. The wings split down the middle with this brown section kind of hinging back from the section front. And you want to bring these back all the way and fold them up to get them out of the way for now. And now comes the really cool part. So this entire assembly here starts to rotate. When you rotate that to a certain point, like you need to get it out of the way because there's this panel in here that pegs in to this section here. So you want to, you can see that pegging in. So you want to pull that back because that is where the robot mode head pegs in. So pull that back and swing this down, and this will swing out and kind of settle in place there. Once that's in place, you can swing this whole assembly around the rest of the way, and that will just kind of softly, it doesn't like click in place, but it settles. Like it's not locked in. There's no peg or anything for it to lock in place, but it will lock in when we're done. And we can straighten out the front sections of the wings that clearly become the robot mode legs. That's very cool. And now want to still keep the arms like this because we want to fold out the wings on these hinges, fold the tail back so that it clears those wings, and take this entire assembly as it's connected to the back and fold it down. With it folded down at 90 degrees, then you can rotate these wing bits up. So they used to be folded up this way, like over here. Now they're up here. And then just keep folding this section down until it's flush with the back. Now that it's flush with the back, get these out of the way, the tail feathers have this little peg section here that pegs into the back there. So when you peg that in, that is what keeps this in place, so you don't have to worry about that falling out. And now these we'll deal with when we get to like looking at the robot mode proper, but essentially you can leave them fanned out, leave them tucked in, leave them down, fold them up. You got options. For now I'm going to leave them like this. So now for the arms, just going to straighten these out. We can bring them down finally, because if you rotate them this way, you can see they kind of stick out a bit more. And here it gives you just a bit more clearance to move this section and the wings around. And with that done, you can fold up the shoulder pads. And lastly, for the legs, this is also really cool. You want to rotate the thighs 180 degrees, unpeg these feather tips from here. There's like a little tab slot thing that you might have to pull up just slightly to get it to clear that tab. So you just pull it up, pull it out, swing it all the way back, and there's this little nub on the inside here that actually does kind of click in place when you push it into the calf, and that will lock that in place for the robot mode. And with that locked in place, just fold these bits down, and that gives you the foot. And do the same thing over here, hold that down, and there we go. There we have Rise of the Beasts Core Series Deluxe Airazor in her robot mode, and for now at least, going to bring these back in. And the weapons can store pretty much the same way they stored in Beast mode. Just peg them in back there. And you can see there's plenty of room for them back there too. So there we go. And this is like, okay. This is probably going to sound weird coming from me. The main reason why this is on my mind is because I have been binging a lot of Dr. Lockdown videos for a while. And for anyone who's familiar with Dr. Lockdown, the dude is big onto small-scale transformers. Like Legions, Legends, Core Class, that kind of thing. The reason I bring that up is because Airazor's transformation, it's more complex than like a Legion or Core Class figure, obviously. But it's on the same level in terms of amusement. Like, there are figures that I have that I enjoy transforming. I think the transforming is really interesting. And figures that I think are really fun to mess around with. They have really good looking modes, all that stuff. But there aren't a ton that I own that I would say I find transforming them back and forth to be more enjoyable than everything else the toy has to offer. And that's not necessarily the case here, but it's just to say that fun in transformation isn't like, it's not a huge thing for me. It's great when it happens, but it's not like my primary thing. But I would say that despite the slightly more complex engineering, this Airazor is like on the same level as, say, a core Legion or Legends figure in terms of just being fun to transform back and forth. Like, I had her on my desk the first day I got her, and she stayed there, I kept going back and forth between robot and bird mode because it's just fun. It's a really fun process. I love how these legs turn into parts of the wings, and I love how the other parts of the wings form the smaller wings that she usually has. It's a really clever conversion. And even like the way they did the bird head, the fact that it's the actual bird head, no faux parts, but because of the nature of the transformation, it had to swing around 180 degrees, but they made it work so well, and everything locks in really nicely. And like, yes, there is some simplicity here that we'll talk about in a minute, but for the most part, like, the articulation's pretty much all there. The sculpting is definitely there. And then the paintwork, could be better, but she's not devoid of paint. So yeah, I absolutely adore this. This figure is incredible, and it really bothers me that it's become such a pain in the butt to get in the US. That should not be the case. Like, it's a big Hollywood style, blockbuster style, at least, movie. They shouldn't be limiting the official line for this big budget movie outside the US. That's just ridiculous. Especially because they've released some of the figures in the line in the US. I've seen some Rise of the Beast figures in our local Target, and our local Target is terrible at getting like good figures or even any Transformers figures in stock most of the time. So the fact that our local Target had current Rise of the Beasts mainline figures, they were just like the smaller, like, what was the Battle Masters or whatever they are, the Beast team up ones. I forget what the official name is, but the ones where it's like a small figure that comes with a smaller figure, and you've got like robot / alt mode and then beast mode / weapon mode for like the two, like, it's small figure plus accessory figure basically. We had some of those in stock. We had like the quick change Optimus Prime that you like smash down on the table to make it transform. But like, if we get those, why aren't we getting these? These are really good. This and like the mainline core series Voyager Optimus Prime that looks great too. I don't think it's going to be on par with this if I ever do manage to get my hands on it, but still, like, I don't understand it. It is ridiculous. And I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to rant about that. But looking at Airazor as she is, this is it still looks a little bit too, darken this up a little bit more. There we go. Looking at Airazor as she is, this figure is great. The proportions are great, especially considering how she transforms. I'm still nerding out over the fact that her legs are wings. That's wild. And again, the sculpting is great. Because of the fact that she is a beast former, you don't really get much in the way of new detail that's revealed aside from the face and like the fronts of the shins, which do have some nice molding on them. Because the fronts of the shins were the inside of that seam for the wing. But yeah, it's great sculpting. The colors are, as I said, it's the same as bird mode. They're nice. The kind of silvery, coppery accents work really well with everything. I just wish that there was a little bit more paint. It works fine on the bird, because you get some added stuff like the can't really see it from here, but like there's that paint on the tail fin. But like the paint's not bad at all by any means. I do actually think they did a good job with putting paint on this. Like they put silver on the thighs on both the front and back, because this is the front of the wing in bird mode, and this is the back of the wing that is actually in the middle of that seam. So like the fact that they painted the knee spikes and the thighs, that speaks volumes to me. You know, they did take the time to distribute the paint so that it would, you know, there would be at least some for the robot mode and not go all into the bird mode or vice versa. I just think, you know, a little bit more would have been nice. Like maybe some extra paint in the shins, maybe a little bit in the thighs, definitely some on the arms. That's the big thing for me. I feel like outside of everything else, the arms could have used some paint because they are just straight up this orangey yellow plastic. And it's fine. I feel like this plastic is a good shade for showing off the detail. And I also love the coppery accents on the shoulder pads. But you know, I think a little bit of paint on the arms would have been nice. And maybe I'll paint it up myself. Maybe there'll be repro labels for this eventually. I don't know, but it would be good. But again, like it looks great. The molding is fantastic. Just even the shoulder pads where you've got... Sorry. It's like you've got all these molded feathers, but then the feathers themselves have individual tiny mechanical details molded in. It's great. This detailing on the side that is painted looks great. There's like little feathery bits all over the place for the textures, and it's just wonderful. There's a Maximal logo that is very difficult to see on her chest, and turning up the lights doesn't seem to help with that, but you can kind of see it. This is probably not the best choice for color. That yellow on that coppery color just does not stand out very well. It's there, it's just hard to see. And then we come to the head, which is it's a really great looking head. It doesn't explicitly look like Airazor, but I feel like this makes more sense as an Airazor head to me than the Studio Series. The Studio Series may be accurate to the movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know if Airazor even has, like, even shows a robot mode in the movie. But what I like about this head sculpt is it has the live-action movie style excessive sculpting and whatnot, but the actual shape of it does still evoke the original Airazor design. Colors are definitely different. The overall lines and contours are different, but it still has that same general feel. And you've still got something that kind of works as like this pseudo beak coming over the top of the head and the feathers flaring out over the sides. But now it's got a more live-action movie look, possibly even more of like a knight look, which I like, medieval knight look, which I think is really nice. And that silver and those really bright green eyes look so good. I really like that green. It's not often that I feel like they do green for Transformers eyes, and you also get it for the bird head as well. And that also looks really good. I like how they put some. Let's keep it on camera. I like how they put that metallic-y, coppery color around that too. But yeah, it's a really nice looking head sculpt. It's a really nice looking figure. And as I said before, the articulation's pretty good too. The head, as you saw, is on a ball joint. You don't really get any side to side, but you can look up and down a ways. If you want to push that in a little bit, you can get down a little further, but really, you can't really use that transformation joint for much. And can rotate 180 degrees. The shoulders are actually pretty decent because you've got these big ball joints in the main connection, so you can actually get a bit of butterfly motion in addition to up and down. But then this can also hinge up more. And you've got, well, actually that's for the ball joint, but like the shoulder pad moves with it, so you can go out pretty far, but then you also have the transformation joint. So if you really wanted to, you could bring the arm up a lot further, or keep it up like this to give a more kind of layered shoulder look, or shift them down more if you want to bring the shoulders down more. I prefer to have them kind of up, so it looks a little bit more dynamic. You have a bicep swivel, a 90-degree bend at the elbow that actually bends in both directions because of the transformation. And the fists do not move, but you can push them up like that if you want for transformation again. I kind of would have liked, because her accessories are swords, I would have liked if this could hinge down a little bit more as an option, but it's fine. I get it. Now, because of the nature of the transformation and the fact that this piece is locking all this together, there is no waist joint, which I understand people being disappointed by that, but I think being disappointed by that, like, it's not unreasonable to be disappointed with the lack of a waist swivel, but it's also ridiculous to consider that a real mark against the figure, considering how this is engineered. The legs can swing forward, pardon me, pretty far. They can't go back that far though, and this isn't because of the tail. Like if we unpeg the tail, you can see that leg is not going back any further at all, and that's because of this block back here knocking into the torso. Like you can see right up there. That's because of just the way it's designed, because of the way it's got to transform to become wings. It kind of fills things out. So I understand that. It's disappointing, but I understand it. As we saw in the transformation, there is a thigh rotation. And with the legs up, you bend the knee and you get 90 degrees. They could have done more, but at the same time, as I'm looking at it, maybe not, because if you actually look, I'm just noticing this now, how clever this is. The gap that they cut into the back of the calf to allow that knee to bend up to 90 degrees, the tip of the feather from the leg piece that pops into the calf, pop this out, come on, there we go. It sits right up there. It's like the perfect size for it to fit there without blocking the knee movement. So I don't really think they could have gotten it much deeper unless they add like a secondary joint somewhere, but considering what this figure's meant for, like a budgetary line, or not budgetary, but like the core kind of main non-collector grade line, even though the figures they're putting out are highly sought after by collectors, I understand. And then for the ankles, you do not get any ankle rocking, but you can pivot forward and backwards, which actually can be pretty decent for like, if you want to do like a slightly forward leaning poses. And yeah, you can get pretty expressive with this Airazor, even without some of the other joints you might want on a deluxe. I really like this figure. Okay, now with all of the rambling out of the way, let's talk about the wings. The wings, as you saw, can be left down and out of the way. And leaving them down and out of the way, they kind of clean up the profile. Give you a pretty, still a cool looking Airazor, but like, you know, she doesn't have her wings. You can flare them out so that they kind of are hanging down a bit, which also looks good. But if you want to and have the shelf space, or if you're just doing more dynamic poses, you can flare them up, which looks really cool. I like how these wings make more sense for the robot mode too. They're like they're a little big in terms of length, at least when you're thinking about like how Airazor's back wings normally look, but they're smaller and slimmer than the Kingdom version, and I don't know, I just think this looks better. I like how they're slim and dynamic looking. And then of course on the back we've got the weapon accessories, and those are just little nicely molded Cybertronian-ish looking knives. They, I don't know, they look good. I appreciate the fact, too, that they actually painted the silver on the blades. I feel like maybe it would have been okay if they put that paint somewhere else on, like, maybe the arms and left these the yellowish color, but I do think that this is not a bad choice. I just probably would have preferred some of that paint going to the arms instead. But these do look really good. And because of how things are, you can peg them into her fists. You can go either way if you want, so you can do underslung or from the top. If you go underslung, though, there is like it doesn't peg in right away. If you go in like this, that does not peg in. You have to push a little bit more to get it actually to stick in there. But once it's in there, it's in there. It's just you won't be able to do like a partially stuck in thing. But one other thing you can do, which is what I've been doing with this figure, because I just think it's fun, and also because while I know it's not Airazor's standard weapon configuration or standard weapons, because she typically has her, like, what was it, wrist blaster things or whatever. What I like doing with this figure is, because I consider it like a different interpretation of the character, is I take one sword and peg it into the fist. Like, again, it takes some doing to line it up, but just peg it in just enough that it sticks in, and then use the other one, come in from the top, and then pretend that she has like a bow, basically. And I think that looks incredibly cool. And I am silly. I completely forgot to do the shilling. So yeah, if you like this video or any of the if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done on the channel and you want to support the channel, I do have a Patreon, links in the description. It's a single $1 tier, it's the only tier I've got, but that $1 a month gets you early access to new videos and of course supports the channel. If you'd rather support the channel in other ways that doesn't require money, you can always like, comment, subscribe, all that usual YouTube nonsense. And I also have a different link down in the description for a Discord server for a online retailer called ShowZ. You may have heard of them. Lots of other reviewers talk about them. I am not sponsored by them, but I have a Discord link that if you follow that Discord link and join the Discord server, I get 50 cents in store credit that can eventually add up if enough people do it to allow me to get some extra figures and stuff that I could potentially do videos on. So that's another way you could support the channel if you want to. Also, again, not sponsored, but I do actually highly recommend ShowZ. I've been using them for a while for third-party knockoff masterpiece style stuff, and it's, you know, considering the free shipping to the US, the fact that it's coming overseas and all that, you know, timing's pretty good. Doesn't take that terribly long to get stuff, and the prices are usually really, really nice. So yeah. Oh, also their customer service is great. Cannot knock ShowZ's customer service. Probably the best customer service for a Transformers retailer that I've encountered for a while. So that's another thing you could do. And with all that out of the way, let's get back to it. It even works if you want to pretend that she's actually shooting it, because she's got enough of a range of posability that you can actually line it up so that she's do that. There we go. And also that little wrist thing comes in handy. So yeah, you can make it look like she's drawing back on a bow, getting ready to shoot something. I don't know. I just think it's cool. As I said several times, I think there are limitations. I keep bumping this freaking setup. There are limitations for the articulation and the engineering and the paint, obviously. But this figure is it's so good. It was a pain in the butt. Or I can't even say that. It was actually pretty easy to order off of eBay. The seller that I ordered her from was, got it to me pretty darn quickly. but I just, I really hate that I had to do it. Not the seller's fault by any means, not the figure's fault, but I just wish that this was something I could have ordered off of like Hasbro Pulse or Amazon or Target or even Walmart. It just bugs me that I had to import a freaking Mainline deluxe from Japan. Ugh. So frustrating. Anyway, let us get our size comparisons ready, because we've got to do that now. So here we've got Heartfire and Rotor Storm and Samus. And here you can see, I'll bring in Burnout in a second, but here you can see that she is, I want to say, roughly regular deluxe height. Because, as a reminder, Rotor Storm is a particularly tall deluxe. But I think that's, pretty decent height for a deluxe. Especially a kind of simpler, more, I don't want to say kid-focused, because it's not necessarily, but just a simpler design. Roughly lower budget figure, maybe, I don't know. And here is Burnout. And like the two of them side by side, she is a little bit taller than Burnout. Not just because of the head crest, but if you notice where the top of the torso is, it sits a little bit higher on Airazor. So she is a teensy bit taller than a regular size deluxe. And just for the heck of it, in case anyone was curious, let's bring in Kingdom Black Arachnia, which is still a really good figure for what she is. But yeah, you can see that's how the two of them stack up next to each other, and Black Arachnia is noticeably shorter than Core Series Airazor. So there is that. And finally, I'm going to bring in the one and only Duck Tank. And that does it for Transformers Rise of the Beasts Core Series Deluxe Class Airazor. And just to recap, I absolutely hate how I can't say handled, how they spectacularly fumbled the distribution of this line, particularly the actually really cool figures. But I can also admit that as frustrating as it was to have to shell out double the cost of the figure to import it from Japan, I don't feel like I wasted my money. Again, I absolutely would have much rather gotten this figure for the regular $20 to $25 retail, but I don't regret my purchase. Whether or not that'll be the same for you all, it remains to be seen. It depends on what you're looking for and what you want out of a figure like this. But I'd say if you really want the figure and if you have the means, get it. Even at double the price, I think it was worth it. It would definitely, if you find it for less than that, get that. But it was worth it for me. The detailing is great. The paint is actually pretty decent. It's just, again, she could use some more on the arms. The style is really nice. The articulation is not fantastic, but it's pretty darn good considering. Really the only thing she's missing compared to, say, the average deluxe these days is ankle tilts and maybe a waist swivel. But we've gotten some deluxes that don't have waist swivels. Not every deluxe has wrist swivels. Not every deluxe has ankle tilts. It just depends. But I think she more than makes up for the slight lack of articulation in just, she looks super dynamic even when she's not doing crazy poses. And that engineering is so good. I'm just so enamored with the way that the legs become the wings. and you're still left with these really nice wings for the robot mode. If you can get this figure, absolutely, especially if you can find her at retail somehow. But I've said all I need to say about this. What do you all think of Rise of the Beasts Airazor? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And, I don't know. It's as much a surprise to me as to you for what the next video is going to be. We'll see how it goes.